This is going to be a training video on 3-point locks on the IPD and the Citadel patio doors. Basic tools that are needed is a 3/32 Allen wrench, hemostats, forceps, surgical clamps, Phillips screwdriver, number 2, or a screw gun with a number 2 bit, and a slotted screwdriver or a 1/4 inch square aluminum stock piece or steel stock piece used to disengage the hardware. A special tool that's needed, and these are obtainable from Peachtree. We send these out with mortise lock boxes, or we can just send these out in an envelope, is an alignment key. It's a small aluminum piece. It's flat, a little bit larger than 1/8 of an inch wide, and about 1/16 of an inch thick. And we use 2 of these when synchronizing the lock or installing the hardware in the panel. When you get a call on a 3-point lock or a 3-point lock problem, you're going to go out to a door, and a couple things you want to check first on qualifying the problem, and it's kind of a process of elimination. First thing you want to look at is installation, and this is like any swinging door, whether it's a closet door or an entry door, whatever. A swinging door has to be able to close into the frame, and it needs a margin around that panel to work properly. Peachtree doors, swing doors, are set up to have 1/8 inch margins across the top and down the sides. So if you can close the door and check the margins across the top of the panel and down the side, it should be approximately 1/8 of an inch. Okay? If you have that 1/8 of an inch margin, then your locks should work, or at least they'll line up with the strike plates that they're supposed to. In this case, with 3 points or 3 bolts, all 3 bolts have to engage in the strike plates simultaneously. Okay, if one is being held up by one of the strike plates, it'll prevent the lock from deadbolting. Okay, so check your margins. If the margins are good and the bolts line up with the strike plates, the lock should work. If the margins aren't good, there's a good chance that the bolts won't engage into the lock position. One way to check this is to swing the door open and try to lock the bolts. Okay? If the lock works with the door in the open position, then we're assuming that everything inside the panel is working properly, and it has something to do with the alignment of the panel in the frame. Okay? To adjust that, we have adjustable hinges. There's 4 hinges on the hinge style of the panel. Citadels and IPDs have always come with 4 hinges, and you can make adjustments to the hinges to adjust the margins around the panel. Okay? If for some reason the bolts are still not engaging or coming out into the deadbolted position, then there's a few things you can check. One would be, in the unlocked position, to grab one of the bolts, and as you gradually turn the thumb turn on the inside, pull in the bolt. And this might help the bolts come out, clear some debris inside the panel, and it might free up the lock, and after that it might work just fine. Okay, so gradually pulling on the bolts, turning the thumb turn, might free up the operation of the lock. The other idea is to take your hemostats, and with the door hanging in the frame, you can access the hole in the top of the panel and pull up on the drive rod, which is basically doing the same thing as pulling on the bolts. Okay? So when you're locking the door, both drive rods, bottom and top, are moving up. When you unlock the door, both are moving down. So to try to lock the door, you could pull up on the drive rod. Okay? Another thing to check with the door still hanging, would be to remove these cover plates from the top and the bottom lock modules. The top and the bottom modules, the cover plates come with the hardware. So when you take the hardware out of the box and install the hardware, these two cover plates are installed at that time. The center mortise lock cover plate is installed at the factory. Okay? If one of the cover plates is installed and might cause some resistance to the bolts, it could prohibit the lock from engaging into the dead bolted position. That's simply corrected by taking off the cover plates, checking the lock, and if need be, filing out the opening on the cover plate. Okay? If it's still not working, the next step would be to pop the hinge pins, take the panel out of the frame, and set it on its edge, which would be the hinge style. So now you've got your 3-point lock swinging panel facing up and all 3 bolts to work with. Okay? First thing we got to do is we've got to remove the cover plates. The center cover plate, which covers the mortise lock, has 3 small 3/8 inch brass machine screws. Okay, so now we've got all 3 cover plates removed, and now we're ready to take the internal components out of the panel. First thing, before you can work on this lock, the lock has to be in the dead bolted position. Okay? You cannot access the Allen screws inside the mortise lock unless the lock's in the dead bolted position. You've got to accomplish that first. Once the lock is dead bolted, you now have access to 2 Allen screws inside the mortise lock.
Pause.
I'm going to show you the modules, top and bottom, are the same, and the center mortise lock. Cover plates have been removed. On the top and the bottom module, which are the same, you'll notice the bolt is in the middle. You've got 2 wood screws, top and bottom, holding the module to the panel, and you've got 2 slots, one on each side of the bolt. It's important to note these slots. Again, the modules are reversible, okay, so they could be installed either way. And I'll show you how the bolts are reversible when we take it apart. But it's important to note these slots, because the alignment key will be installed into the upper slot when synchronizing the top rod and the bottom rod. The alignment key again will be installed in the upper slot, which would be this one, when installing the drive rods and aligning the drive rod to be secured. The mortise lock, with the cover plate removed, you can see there's a wood screw at the top and the bottom of the mortise lock holding it to the panel. There's 3 threaded holes for the machine screws that hold the cover plate to the mortise lock. 3 threaded holes for the machine screws. In addition to those, you have 2 slots or 2 holes, one above the bolt and one at the very top. What we're going to do to access the Allen screws is we're going to come in to the first hole available from the end. Wood screws are in place. Be the first hole in from the bottom. This one's threaded. And the first hole in from the top, which is not threaded. And that's the access hole, or the access holes for the Allen screws. Okay? So to remove the bottom drive bar, take my Allen wrench, go in the bottom threaded hole, and loosen it about 2 turns. Okay? If you have trouble finding the Allen screw, you might try a ballpoint Allen wrench, or at times you might have to wiggle this Allen wrench around, or turn the lock in and out to find the Allen screw. But most times, it's not a problem to find. Again, it's got to be in the lock position. All 3 have to be on the same plane in the lock position. Okay, so I've turned this loose 2 turns, and now I can go in. This is the bottom of the door. The sweep has been removed. I can go in about 2 to 3 inches and find the drive bar. Okay? I'm pulling the drive bar. I'm going to have to loosen this a little bit more. Here we go.
What?
It's a feisty one.
Yes, it was.
So this is a dry bar, the bottom dry bar, and you have to push down the bolt to bypass the small axle or pin in the middle, which prevents rattling of the bar inside the panel. Now you'll note the bottom dry bar is marked with a B on the end, and on swing panels you have 2 sets of plastic rollers, 2 pairs of plastic rollers. On a sliding panel, it's a similar bar, but the rollers are in the middle, towards the middle, and spread apart a little bit more. Okay? Swing panel, bottom bar marked with a B. You'll note this small notch. That's the notch that we're going to use with the alignment key when we install the drive bar, and we drop that alignment key through the upper slot. We're going to find that notch and secure the Allen screw. The Allen screw basically secures to the drive bar at this point. So the end of the drive bar goes into the mortise lock. The Allen screw tightens down on the end of the drive bar. Bottom drive bar. On the upper bar, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come into that upper hole on the mortise lock, first hole down from the wood screw, and we're going to loosen it 2.5 to 3 turns. From the top of the panel, you'll find an orange plastic plug. That protects the chamber that the hardware is installed. With the plug removed, you go in with your forceps and can remove the drive bar from the mortise lock. Again, push down the bolt to bypass the pin. Okay? The top drive bar is marked with a T. You have the same notch for the alignment key, 2 pairs of rollers. Okay? And they are different. Top is different than the bottom.